Who are the best replacements for Diogo Jota? I've had a bit more of a think about a chip strategy for the upcoming game weeks. I'll talk a bit more about blank game week 29, and I've put together a couple of wildcard drafts as well, if you're planning on using the chip in game week 26. Here are my thoughts ahead of the game week. Up first then, Diogo Jota, and the prognosis is not good, unfortunately. Jurgen Klopp has said that it's a case of months out for him. In my view, I think he's going to miss the rest of the season, to be honest. It looks like, well, he had a really awkward incident with a Brentford player. Basically, Jota was on the floor, like lying on his back after falling from a header, and the Brentford player landed on his knee, so Jota's knee bore the full weight of the Brentford player's body, sort of bent backwards like that. And he damaged his posterior cruciate ligament, unfortunately. So, yeah, he's going to be out for the season, I think. And that means it's time to replace him. So what I've done is put together a list of who I think are the best replacements for Diogo Jota. And really, in order to gain a full understanding of who is the best player to bring in for him, it kind of relies on understanding the fixtures and knowing your chip strategy. We have a blank game week coming up in game week 29, right? That's well known now by the FPL community. And really, if you're looking to bring a player in from this game week onwards, you need to have that blank game week in mind and your plans around it. For example, if you're playing your free hit in game week 29, you don't need to worry about picking a player with a fixture. So basically, if you're buying a player in 26, you're going to need them to be playing in game week 26, which is a blank for 4 teams. And you're going to need them to be playing in game week 29 as well. So, yeah, you need to be cognizant of the fixtures. Let's just have a look at those. Got the players on screen at the moment, but let's just have a quick look at the fixtures. So, game week 26 is a blank for Luton, Liverpool, Tottenham, and Chelsea. So, in reality, if you're spending a transfer in game week 26 to buy a replacement for Diogo Jota, you definitely don't want to be buying a player that blanks in 26. So, Luton players, other Liverpool midfielders, Tottenham midfielders and Chelsea midfielders, they're pretty much out the window. And then a couple game weeks after that, we've got a blank in game week 29 that's looking likely for Man City, Liverpool, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Arsenal, Wolves, Everton, Brighton and Chelsea. You can see this fixture list is courtesy of Ben Crellin. And what he's done that's really helpful is he's provided the probability of the game week being a blank for certain teams, depending on the betting odds of a result in the fixtures that they have in the FA Cup. So, yeah, it's basically the best source of information we have. So teams that are confirmed to play, just bear this in mind when I go back to my list of players, because if you're not planning to use your free hit in game week 29, you need to buy a player from the teams with a fixture in 29, right? If you're planning to play a free hit, you don't need to worry. I've not got any players on the list with a blank in 26, obviously, but some of them do blank in 29. So the teams you're looking for if you're not on your free hit, Brentford, Aston Villa, Burnley, Fulham, West Ham and Tottenham. Well, Tottenham not so much because they blank in 26, but hopefully you get the idea with that one. So going back to the list, Saka, I think if you don't own Saka already, he's one of the most popular players in the game, right? So if you don't own Saka already and have enough cash in the bank, I think it makes full sense to go for him. As you can see there, I've ranked all of these players by their expected returns per 90, which for me is one of the best stats, particularly when assessing a midfielder in FPL for attacking perspective, right? He is the top by quite a margin for expected returns per 90. He's got 22 attacking returns in 24 starts. He's an absolute minutes guarantee, right? He's always nailed to start on that right-hand side. Pretty much plays 90 minutes every game for Arsenal, right? He's just a fantastic option. If you can't get to Saka or already have him in your team, according to the expected returns per 90, Leon Bailey is the second best target. 0.6 expected returns per 90. And Bailey actually has a fixture in game week 29 as well. So he could really be a player to consider. Pascal Gross, he is likely to blank in game week 29. But again, if you're on your free hit, he might be someone you want to consider. There is a fair bit of rotation going on with the Brighton midfielders and forwards. But Gross seems to be pretty much a stalwart in that Brighton starting 11. And with João Pedro currently being injured, Gross is also the penalty taker for Brighton. His returns are definitely more weighted towards assists. 4 goals, 9 assists in 22 starts. 0.51 expected returns per 90. I think if I'm planning to use my free hit in game week 29 and I just want a simple replacement for Jota, in my mind, I think Hwang is the best replacement. He's got a fantastic scoring record this season for Wolves. Importantly, he takes their penalties as well, which comparing him to Bailey, obviously a player of a similar price, Bailey doesn't have the penalties. And I'd also say Hwang is probably a bit more nailed for Wolves than Bailey is for Villa. I reckon, if Bailey puts in a couple of poor games for Villa, Diaby, who also plays in that position, could just quite easily take his place. And yeah, Hwang's got Sheffield United as his fixture in game week 26 as well. So I don't really think there's many better opponents for him to face. Foden's up there, obviously likely to blank in game week 29. You can see his stats there. I don't mind Jared Bowen. He feels like a player that's going to reward patience. Now, I know West Ham are playing really poorly at the moment. It's been a few games since he's even had a sniff of a goal. But Bowen, looking at those stats, right, 11 goals from 8.8 XG. He is an absolutely lethal finisher, right? And I feel like he will get chances. Even if West Ham are poor, he is going to get chances in the upcoming games, right? I just think he's such a safe option, right? Regardless of what happens at West Ham, Bowen is going to be nailed to start, play 90 minutes, doesn't take the penalties, but he's really quite dangerous from open play. Every time I see West Ham creating a goal-scoring chance, Bowen's either involved as the creator or he gets on the end of them. I really like him as an option. It's just a shame that West Ham are in poor form at the moment. Anthony Gordon's up there. I mean, you can see his stats. He's having a phenomenal season. Newcastle not playing so great at the moment, but he is the penalty taker when Isak and Wilson aren't on the pitch. Obviously now to play for them, plays 90 minutes pretty much every game. Even when he's limped off from St James's Park on crutches the week before, we've seen him in the starting lineup the week after. It's pretty crazy, really. So I don't mind him as an option, but he is likely to blank in game week 29. Douglas Luiz, another Aston Villa midfielder. I'd say Bailey. I probably prefer Bailey to Douglas Luiz, just because at the moment, Villa having an injury to Boubacar Kamara, I think is going to push Douglas Luiz to be a bit deeper. He has been quite dangerous from open play this season, of course, being the Villa penalty taker. Got a lot of goals from those pens, but he has been dangerous from open play. But I do think that's going to retract a little bit, given that Boubacar Kamara is injured. He's going to need to play a bit more defensive. And then Mohamed Kudus at the end, again, another player that doesn't blank in game week 29. But can you justify really picking him over Bowen? I think it's a bit of a rogue shout. He's got 10 attacking returns from very low expected goals and expected assists. So you can see there, 0.28 expected returns per 90. But he's got 10 attacking returns from 14 starts. The thing I'd say with Kudus, I think Hwang and Bowen, they've proven to me to be absolutely, clinical elite finishers. But I'm not sure Kudus ticks that box. I think, not saying he's lucky, but I do think the returns might dry up and become more towards the XG norm in future game weeks, especially with West Ham playing poorly, right? But yeah, that's my list of West Ham replacements. I'd say my favourites, if you're not planning to free hit in game week 29, I'd definitely go for Bailey or Bowen. If you are, I'd go obviously Saka if you're playing your free hit and you don't have him already. I'd say Hwang is probably second best if you're on your free hit in 29. Right, so I did pretty much cover game week 29 in that little segment. I'm conscious I put it on the thumbnail as one of the things I wanted to talk about. I'll just leave this on screen to talk around. But knowing what happens in blank game week 29 is so important. And we will find out over the next couple of game weeks, right? So my general advice for dealing with blank game week 29 is to try and hold on to your chips for as long as possible until we know the outcome, right? I see a lot of people going to play their wildcard in game week 26, and I've got a couple of drafts to share with you, right? But in my mind, information is always better than playing your chips early to try and get ahead. That's my view anyway, because it's reliant on FA Cup results, right? And I just always feel there's an upset on in the FA Cup. Man City could have a game, something mad like that could happen. And yeah, for that reason, I think it's really tough to absolutely nail on that you're going to play your wild card. But if you are, I've got a couple drafts for you. So again, it's similar really as to who you want to replace Jota with as to what you do with your wild card, right? It all stems around, in my opinion, whether you're going to use your free hit in game week 29 or not, right? So I've put together a wild card draft assuming that you are, and assuming that you aren't, and you need players for game week 29. So this is the wildcard draft I put together, assuming that you're going to use your free hit in game week 29. So I've gone for Areola and Neto as a goalkeeper double up. Areola, you can play him in game week 26 and then bench him for 28 and 27, 28 and 29, right? Because Neto, the Bournemouth keeper I've gone for, has a double in 28. He's got Burnley in 27. Couple of fantastic fixtures to play him for where he could keep clean sheets, can get saves bonus, right? Across the defence, I've gone for 8 Nori. I'm a little bit flexible really on the 4.5 million defenders. You definitely, I think, need Senesi of Bournemouth to cover because he's got the double and Burnley. But 8 Nori's the one I've gone for just for the fact he's got a really good fixture in Game Week 26. Sheffield United could keep a clean sheet and get an attacking return in that one. Gabriel and Saliba as my Arsenal defensive double up. I just really like them. I really like having an Arsenal defensive double up because you know who's going to play every week for the Arsenal defence. Gabriel and Saliba are going to start. And they're the best defence in the league for expected goals conceded. And Arsenal have the most goals this season from set pieces. So not only do they offer great clean sheet potential, but they can also get attacking returns too. Garnacho, I really like him just as a cheap midfielder to rotate. If you don't want to start him every week, you don't have to. I think against Fulham, it makes sense to go with him. And then next week, I would suggest you could rotate him with Salah, who you can see there on the bench. When he's got Man City, Salah should be back in the team for Nottingham Forest, right? Hwang, I think is a great option. Spoke about him as a Jota replacement, right? He's the penalty taker for Wolves. And he's got Sheffield United and Newcastle in his next couple of games. Sheffield United, probably one of the worst teams in the league, right? Joint second worst with Burnley, I'd say. And then Newcastle are the worst defence in the league for expected goals conceded over the last couple of months. So, I mean, a couple of great fixtures for him. Saka, I mean, probably the best midfielder in the game, bar Salah at the moment, I would say. Likewise, Phil Foden, he's just fantastic for Man City. Solanke, I think you just got to play him through Man City fixture and hope he gets something. You know, Man City obviously concede the odd goal in most games, so he could well return in that one just by being the Bournemouth penalty taker, to be honest. Then he's got Burnley and then a double game week. Haaland, I mean, you got to go for Erling Haaland, haven't you? He's the best captain week on week, apart from game week 28, when I'd suggest Solanke is your man. You could also, if you've still got your triple captain in hand, obviously use it on Solanke in game week 28. Watkins, I mean, between Watkins and Tony, you can be a bit loose there. They both play in game week 29. I prefer, I think, just Watkins to Tony. His returns just seem to be a bit higher this season, right? Spoken about most of my bench, Neto and Senesi. I think it makes sense to go for the two of them. You know, they've got a double in game week 28 and a nice fixture in 27. Charlie Taylor at 3.9 million. He plays in 26, which I think is really important. And it looks like he might have a fixture in game week 29 as well. And Salah, I mean, he's got a couple of blanks. Well, not that game week 29 matters. As I said, you're playing your free hit with this wildcard draft. But yeah, Salah, I think it makes sense to go with him if you're on your wildcard, especially with a team like this, right? Garnacho, you can just play Garnacho this week and then bench him for next week for Salah. So yeah, if you're on your free hit in 29, I think this is the kind of team you should be building. And then if you're not on your free hit, I've tried to basically pick as many players as I can with a fixture in game week 29. So, you know, Tony, you've tripled up on Villa. I can't squeeze Watkins in because I think you need Douglas Luiz and Bailey to cover you. You could have some extra Brentford players in there if you wanted, but I find it really tough to go for Brentford defenders. But potentially you could go for Reguilon over maybe Doty. I've gone for Son over Salah compared to the old draft. Kaminsky in goal because I think it's quite a tough one basically to go for triple Bournemouth if you're on your free hit in 29, but you could get some Bournemouth players in there. Basically, I've just tried to pick as many players with the double with the game in 29, sorry. And I actually think you end up with a subpar wildcard draft if you do this. So this team, in my opinion, is not looking anywhere near as good as this one. So in my mind, if you're playing your wildcard, I would only do so if you're planning to free hit in game week 29. Because if you're building a team on a wildcard right now without a plan to free hit, I just don't think it makes sense. I think in my mind, you use free transfers to get you through game week 29, dead end your team into it, and then play your wildcard in 30 to get you through to the end of the season. All right then, just talking a little bit about chip strategy then. So what I've done is I've put together a slide for each of the chips and the remaining game weeks of the season where you could potentially use them. And hopefully, you know, there's not a one-size-fits-all chip strategy that I can definitely say suits your team, right? Because we've all got different players. We've all used a different amount of chips at this point. So there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give all the potential opportunities to use these chips and allow you to come to your own conclusions, really, because that's the only way I can properly give advice. So your free hit then, that's when your team, you need to change it for one game week and one game week only. For me, it's best used to target a blank and a double game week where you don't have much coverage. So first opportunity to use it is this week, game week 26, right? Luton, Liverpool, Spurs and Chelsea have a blank. some of those players are going to be pretty popular in FPL, right? And your team might be full of them, and then that might be an opportunity basically to use your free hit. Game week 29 is going to be a big blank game week caused by the FA Cup quarterfinals. Going to be the biggest of the season. I think for me, my team, my setup, this is the best time to use my free hit. Game week 34 is going to be a double and a blank game week depending on the FA Cup and when fixtures from game week 29 are rescheduled. So potentially you're not going to be well covered for that. So an opportunity to use your free hit there. And likewise, game week 37. Towards the end of the season, we might see some rotation from teams as well, which might even be even more impetus to use a chip like the free hit. It's going to be the biggest double of, well, one of the biggest doubles of the season. And yeah, caused by the game week 29 rescheduling. So given it's the end of the season as well, expected minutes for some players is going to be a bit doubtful. You know, Haaland's probably not going to play both games if the City title race is, well, if the title race is wrapped up, right? Likewise, teams that are relegated might be already decided, or teams vying for Champions League spots. You see my reasoning? So in some cases, there might be a bit of rotation in teams, and that could be the ideal time to use your free hit. So personally, I think the ideal time to use the triple captain, based on the information we had, was game week 25, right? We knew Haaland was fit and ready to go for a double game week against two teams which certainly weren't the best in the league, and I think it was a good time to use the triple captaincy. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out. He did score one goal, but that was it. He just scored a goal, right? There are plenty of potential opportunities coming up to use it, and I think you're going to be happy if you haven't used it already. But game week 28 is going to be a double for Luton and Bournemouth. Solanke is probably the outstanding candidate there. On pens for Bournemouth, nailed for 90 minutes. And he's got Sheffield United and Luton at home for his two fixtures. So there's an opportunity to use it. Obviously, game week 34 and 37 are going to be double game weeks. Don't know what they look like yet. Don't know which players are going to be available for that time. But it could be a good time to use it, right? I think it's quite obvious. You need to use your triple captain on a double game week because we've got some of them coming up, right? Yeah, I really like the thought of basically having a triple captain available now, given how Haaland's gone on. Okay, then, so the wild card in my mind is probably the single most powerful chip in the game. You can completely change your whole team and for the rest of the game. And it's obviously best used when your team is in long-term trouble with injuries or players being out of form or being dropped, etc. Times when fixtures swing or, you know, we get blank and double game weeks you want to prepare for. And it can also be used in conjunction with a bench boost. And I'll talk about the bench boost in a second. Now, you could use your game week 20 wildcard, in game week 26. Obviously gone through a couple of drafts for you already. It's going to be, you know, obvious prep for the doubles and blanks coming up. Game week 29, you could use it basically in game week 30. After dead ending your team in game week 29. That's what I was meant to say there. But yeah, I mean, you could dead end your team into blank game week 29, pick 11 players that all have a fixture, and then wildcard in 30, completely transform your team for the rest of the season and be ready for all the blanks and doubles. Likewise, you can use it ahead of the game week 34 and 37 blanks. So the game week before that, you could use your wildcard and then potentially use your bench boost to make the most of those doubles. I think if you can do it, using a wild card in conjunction with a bench boost is the most powerful way to go about things, because you can pick 15 players in a wild card draft with a double game week and then use your bench boost the week after, which means you have 30 players, well, basically not 30 players, 15 players, 30 fixtures in one game week. How good does that sound, right? I think that's the opportunity you have in 34 and 37. I've spoken about it already, but the bench boost in conjunction with the wildcard, I think, is going to be really powerful. You know, 15 players, each with two fixtures in a single game week, if you use your wildcard correctly, could be just an unbelievable opportunity to make up ground, right? So a couple of times I'd consider using a bench boost is game week 34 and 37, right? But if you have a game week coming up, even if it's just a single, right, and you've got 15 players all with decent fixtures, I mean, obviously that's a good opportunity to use it as well. I don't know what your team looks like to decide that for you, but yeah, either use it in the doubles or at a time when you've got 15 players all with really nice fixtures. All right, and that's the end of the video. Hopefully there I've covered everything important going into game week 29. The one thing I didn't cover, and obviously Jota picked up an injury in game week 25, Darwin Núñez did too, and he's going to blank in game week 26, and I think he's going to be quite a popular transfer out for most players. But for me, I think the forwards kind of speak for themselves, and I've already kind of spoken through them, right? Solanke, Haaland, Watkins, and Tony. Pick any of those four, right, to replace him with, and I think you'll be fine. The Jota one is a bit more difficult because There's so much, well, so many more midfield options than there are striker options. I think it's a bit harder of a decision. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments what you think of the players and suggestions I've made there. Maybe even let me know your chip strategy or ask some questions about it. I'll try to get to some replies in the comments. And subscribe to the Goal to Goal channel. It should be just here if you want to see more content from me. And I will catch you in the next one.